We want to welcome everybody in that is watching the live Facebook Live overtime version of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. Thank you guys for tuning in on Facebook. If you guys are ever out and don't have your phone, I guess, that allows you to get Facebook Live, or better yet, you want to listen to the whole show, download the free Spreaker app. Just type in Cold Hard Truth on Sports and then follow us. We're really close in the deal that we're working on to actually have the show not only available for you guys here on Facebook Live, or Blog Talk, or Spreaker, or SoundCloud, or iTunes, Somos, YouTube, but also on iHeartRadio. So we're really close to that, but we need you guys to go over to follow us over on the Spreaker, and you'll be able to listen to the whole show over there. But the podcast will then, once we reach a certain limit that we've agreed to, we'll start the podcast on iHeartRadio. So as you can see behind me here, I work on my hand gestures. This is episode 269. So if you want to follow the show, it's at the CHT on Sports, or you can get at me directly at Matt Long Sports. And if you want to get in and in here in Facebook and comment and share and be a part of this live and comment, feel free to do so. We're going to have fun with this. So I want to finish up some of, let's see here, just getting into college football, or just finishing up on college football. I apologize. You guys got to get into the show earlier. I appreciate you guys tuning in here for overtime, but really getting in here earlier so you can get on more of the sports talk is I would have to say paramount. I think that's the word I'm going to go with. Paramount. We've done like 2 hours on college football, so it's probably time to start wrapping that up. All right. Your comments here. All right. Hey. All right. Some people are starting rolling there. I will start. Yeah, I will, as we go along, I will start reading those. Don't think I'm ignoring your comments. All right. I am not ignoring. Okay. So we just went over the top 25 teams just before we went live here on Facebook. Yeah, hell of a time here. So anyways, this week coming up is going to be with some pretty marquee games coming up here on the schedule for week 3. And this could be one of those weeks where some programs and some fan bases are really kind of questioning maybe what direction the school is going in. I think the first big game that most people are really going to be paying attention to is an early game at noon, Oklahoma and Iowa State. Iowa State isn't necessarily the team it was last year. They're coming off their first game of the season being their second game of the season. They played Iowa tough in Ames. They lost 13-3. Now they're heading to Norman. I'm sorry, no, they're at home. Correction. They have Oklahoma at home in Iowa City. So this is one of those teams that Oklahoma has slipped up against in the past. Again, there's some uncertainty around Kemp, the quarterback for Iowa State, if he will play in the game or not. That will make a difference. But it's the first game on the slate, and it's going to be one that really is going to be one of those litmus tests of which direction is Iowa or Iowa State going. Are they going to stay up as a contending team within the Big 12? Will they rise up? Or is Oklahoma going to be able to sustain what they have been doing this season? And because they've come out and they've looked very legitimate, just routed FAU, routed UCLA. And will be more of that against Iowa State? I don't know. So that'll be the first game. It's an early game. I always like when you have some questions around early games like this. So I'm definitely going to be tuned in early, keeping an eye on that game this week. The next big game that really sticks out for me is actually BYU playing Wisconsin in Madison. BYU struggled early this last week against New Mexico, primarily with the aspects of their run game or the triple option or the RPOs. They were connecting well on slant plays and getting the ball over the middle of the field in between in little pockets in the zone. And that was in the first half of the game. The second half, they didn't keep up. There was a couple costly mistakes, and Wisconsin took advantage of them, and they didn't see any daylight pretty much after that. So, I mean, we were looking at a 7-10 halftime score with a quick turnaround, 14 points by Wisconsin, and then outscored them 21-7 in the fourth quarter. It wasn't really a football game much in the second half. So, but again, I think there were some aspects of the Badgers game that were exploited, and this BYU team, it's coming into here to play them. They're 1-1 with a win week 1 over Arizona, 28-23. And again, that was Kevin Sumlin's first game. Didn't go how he thought it would. And then played Cal in a losing effort, 21-18. So it was by 4 points there. Very close. I mean, now they're heading to Madison to play Wisconsin. So that's 3 quality opponents right off the bat. They're 1-1, have played them both pretty close. So I would suspect that BYU, giving the way their offense operates, is going to try to push Wisconsin to play tight. Where this game could get away from BYU is if they're not able to stop the run game. Hornibrook has, in my opinion, really struggled to establish himself as a clear-cut passer. He's done well. I mean, 405 yards over 2 games, completing over 60%, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Again, Alex Hornibrook is not a bad quarterback. I just think as of right now, I don't think he's proven that he's going to be the guy that really takes this team on his back and wins the game. Primarily, it's on the shoulders of Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he's only 7 yards shy in rushing yards versus Hornibrook's passing. And has 5 touchdowns. So I mean, his value right now is much higher. And then Deal is right behind him with 110 yards this season. So I mean, as always, Wisconsin has running backs, and they're deep, and they'll use a whole host of them. This season, it's been, was it 9 different people have carried the ball for Wisconsin. 9 different players have collected rushing statistics. Here we are in week 3. 9 people have touched the ball in a rushing effort. Wisconsin is clearly a run-first team, and I think that's probably one of the things that they're going to really struggle with BYU. They try to play close games, and they're just going to really have to find a way to slow down that rushing game and then take advantage of turnovers. That's the only way BYU has a chance to win this game in Wisconsin. So that's going to be, again, that's the second game that I'm really going to be paying attention to. I think that is more so the marquee games of the week. Also at 3:30, clearly most people, especially in the South, are going to have their eyes on this game. By the way, there are tickets left for this next game. LSU travels a not too far distance to face Auburn. So 2 top 12 teams face off. Now there are tickets left. There's 2,030 tickets left, as low as $122 if you want to go to that game. It's going to be one of those knockdown, drag out fights. LSU looks like they have something that resembles a quarterback, and he might be one of the better quarterbacks in all of the SEC. I think he showed up well against Miami. I would have liked to see them do more last week. They win 31-0 against some, I guess, Southeastern Louisiana Lions. I guess that's a high school team, and it's the SEC, so they throw those kind of teams. I'm guessing that's a high school team. I don't know. Facebook, you can tell me if you think it's a high school team or not. All right. Pull that screen back over here. So again, that's going to be one of those knockdown, drag out fights. I don't see this game getting too high scoring. They both know each other really well. Also at 3:30, that we're going to see Boise State and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State just got up into the top 25. Boise State has been up there all season. They're part of the preseason 25, so they've been holding it down. But here's their first real test of the season against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is clearly going to put up yards, and they're clearly going to put up points. I mean, Tyler Cornelius has already passed for 728 yards and 6 touchdowns this season. I mean, throwing, what was that, 66%, completing 66%. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Boise State's clearly going to have some sort of a rushing attack too. So we'll see where that game goes. Now, some have told me that we need to watch out for Ole Miss and Alabama. I don't think that Alabama is going to slip up against this Ole Miss team. I could be wrong. They did hold Texas Tech to 27 points. It's normally a pretty high scoring team. But then they played against Southern Illinois, and they gave up 41 points. So this wasn't like, oh, they had the third string in the second half, and no, Southern Illinois was winning at the end of the first quarter, 21-14, and then we're up going into halftime as well. So it was 38-34 at halftime. So they were leading into halftime. But and I have to emphasize this, too many teams, I don't know what happens if they forget completely what happened in the first half, or they get too overconfident, or there's too much time before coming back out. But they forgot how to score in the second half because they put up 3 points. 3 points. They put up 38 points in the first half and 3 in the second half. So Ole Miss pretty much just locked them down, put up 14 in the third, 27 is ran it up at the end of the game, end up winning this one 76-41. Alabama doesn't really ever start slow. And not being able to slow Alabama down, they're not going to give up that much. And they have a guy at quarterback that is going to sling it on them. So I have Alabama winning this one. But thanks for you saying it's Ole Miss's year. No, it's not. Then at 8 o'clock, there's a few games at 8 o'clock that are really worth. There's a couple games actually worth watching. Ohio State plays TCU. That's down at the AT&T Stadium there in Arlington. And then there's actually a rematch not too far down the road in Austin. USC and Texas play. This is kind of a pseudo rematch of that national championship game. For those of you in Texas, there are plenty of tickets left for both of these. Ohio State TCU will be on Watch ESPN and the ABC, and Southern Cal and Texas will be on Fox. Now, if you want to go to Austin, to the Royal Texas Memorial Stadium, there are, it says 3,602. I swear that's a bigger number than just 2 hours ago when we looked at it. Like, people returned tickets. I don't know if they did or not, but 3,602 tickets available as low as $10. So if you are near the Austin area and have shit else to do on Saturday night, there's $10 tickets to watch Texas and Southern Cal play. Why not? If you're up near the Arlington area, the Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington area, there are still 3,750 tickets, as low as $54 to see number 4 Ohio State play number 15 TCU. So there are tickets available for both of those games. And then the games that I think are going to be really interesting to watch, that most of my listeners and viewers here probably won't watch because they're in the Pac-12. It's on the late starts. It's over on the West Coast. Washington and Utah. Washington is trying to keep that stretch going and wants to establish their dominance there in the Pac-12. They play at Utah and kick off at 10 p.m. Eastern. That's on ESPN. And then the game I think is going to be, I really am looking forward to watching, is Arizona State and San Diego State. That's a kickoff at 10:30, and that's on CBS Sports Network. So I'm looking forward to seeing that game. Now, again, just so people are aware, East Carolina and Virginia Tech game is canceled at this point. West Virginia, North Carolina State is canceled at this point. And Central Florida and North Carolina game is canceled at this point, okay? All 3 of those games have been canceled at this point. There's no word on if they're being rescheduled, when they would get moved to, or not. Clearly because there is a hurricane bearing down on the Carolinas. So I'm talking people already, state officials have already declared states of emergency. It is real. Outside of that, like I was saying, I'm gonna watch the game because I watch all their games. Nebraska and Troy. Again, this Troy team isn't a team really should be taken lightly. They went into Death Valley last year and they pulled out a 24-21 victory over LSU. They lost 2 games last year, all last year. They've had a struggle. They've struggled in the game this year so far against Boise State, and then really didn't have any competition at all against FAMU, but head to Lincoln to fight those Cornhuskers. And Nebraska, again, there's no word as of yet who will be starting at quarterback, and if if Adrian Martinez, if his right knee is going to be well enough to play in the game. Again, at this point, according to Coach Ross, he said the news that they've gotten is about as good of news as could have got. Right? That's about the end of it. So it sounds positive for Nebraska. Again, that Adrian Martinez kid he has some touch. He has arm. He's accurate. He's poised in the pocket. Good footwork. It's all there. As good as you could have a freshman quarterback go out and look and feel, it was all right there. One costly interception and a fumble really hurt him. Again, first game in almost 2 years playing football. I think he did pretty exceptional. So I look forward to seeing that game. Where was that last game that I gave you? All right. So let's go ahead and move on. Here. All right. Yes, I will. I'll get into that now before I get into the NFL. Absolutely. So over the weekend, we had a fight for the vacant WBC belt in boxing, welterweight belt. Sean Porter and Danny Garcia. Now, was that was the right belt, right? Yeah, that's the one was vacated. Yeah, for the W. Yeah, it's right there. Okay. I didn't score this fight. Normally, title fights I score. I was just a spectator for this one. Sean Porter won by unanimous decision. Watching the fight, I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with that, him winning. Now, if they have Danny Garcia winning the decision, I don't really have an issue with that either. And here's why. They have very contradictory styles. When you have a fighter like Danny Garcia, who pretty much doesn't move a whole lot. He rarely comes forward. He's usually at a point, some slight movement, but a lot of counter punching, catching his opponent on the way in and on the way out. That's usually his MO. He doesn't have the same power and ability to influence the fight in the same ways as he did at light welterweight, super lightweight, whatever you want to call it, 140 pounds. At 147, he's been very unspectacular because he's a boxer. He's not going to brawl with you. You might trade some punches, but it's not going to go on for too long. But he pretty much is. He doesn't move. Like I said, I don't want to call him a statue because he's not a statue, but he's statuesque. Okay. On the other hand, Sean Porter is not a statue. He moves a lot. Throws a lot of punches that kind of awkward type punches. He'll throw punches that kind of almost look like he's trying to push, but it's a punch. A lot of getting inside, a lot of grinding, holding, working really inside out. He did a good job this fight. This Sean Porter boxed more in this fight than I've seen him, at least effectively, in in many other fights. It's obviously not his strong suit after watching this fight, but you can clearly tell he's improving on it. And it's something he's going to have to do if he wants to prolong his career in boxing. He's going to have to work on being able to box better. And I think he did an admirable job. You can tell he improved. Now, fighting a guy like him, because he's a very active puncher, he moves a lot. He's pushing, holding, moving around the ring a lot. A lot of times, fighters like that, Orlando Salido is kind of another guy like that, just a little bit lower weight class. That he's an active fighter, more active puncher rather. Usually they can kind of steal some rounds because it looks like they're doing more, whereas physically they are, but as far as scoring points and punches, they tend to have less effectiveness because the punches don't land as clean, and they end up throwing a higher volume of punches and not as accurately. So does the punch land? It's usually more so grazing, but able to still score points and kind of steal away rounds through activity. Danny Garcia is really going to have to do something. If he wants to stay at welterweight, he's going to have to do something to change his game so he's moving more. He needs to be able to find a way to come forward some and then manipulate some of the angles he comes in to fight with, because being able to just stand there and counterpunch and welterweight's not going to work. You have too many guys that are just too active with speed and with power to be able to, try to use a little bit of height over them. And we saw this in the Keith Thurman fight. Again in this fight as well. So it's not something that really is saying he needs to go down a weight class, but clearly he was a lot more comfortable and a lot more suited at the 140-pound weight class. Danny Garcia shouldn't want to fight. If his aim is to win, Terrence Crawford is not someone he wants to fight. If I was him, I wouldn't even want to go after Pacquiao. I think Danny Garcia he's more like the Lucas Matisse kind of. He's just there in front of you. He's obviously a lot better at counterpunching and speed and whatnot. Doesn't have the power Matisse has, but he would get picked apart. Where Porter's not as skilled as a boxer to be able to go in and really pick him apart like that, Keith Thurman did do that and pretty much just played keep away in the last 4 rounds of the fight, just staying out of way of punches and not getting himself in trouble. Even in that fight, you really didn't see Danny Garcia knowing that he's likely down on the cards, trying to really pursue Keith Thurman to a point where it was effective. But that's something he really needs to add some wrinkles to his game if he wants to stay at the welterweight level. Again, I don't have a problem with this unanimous decision. I didn't score it, so I couldn't tell you either way how I scored it. But just watching the fight, it looked very back and forth. I can see with the activity that Porter put in, how he could have scored some rounds. I did see that the counterpunching was very effective as far as scoring solid points from Danny Garcia's end. However, this is one that was kind of could be trouble for Danny Garcia to begin with, just because of the the style of fighting. It was interesting. It went 12 rounds. I don't mind it going 12 rounds. It's fun to see knockouts, but when you have an active a fight as this, then you get really a treat. So, no, I'm not going to get into the other scorecards. No, talk about what was on HBO. I think it was like featherweight fights, flyweight and featherweight fights. Yeah, I didn't watch them. So, but that's my little dig here on boxing. I'm going to get into the NFL. So this week, this first week one in the NFL was again. If you guys listened to the show last week, I've kind of struggled with what are the Buccaneers going to be. They clearly pulled off a big win. They actually do a pretty good job of winning games and scoring points there in New Orleans. So it's not at all surprising that they won or that they put up some points. But what I think was surprising that the teams put up so many points. Again, it ended up coming on both sides of this. Again, it was not one of those weeks where you struggle to find a field goal. Both of these teams did put up significant points in this game. 48-40 was the final. It's 84 points, which is more points that any teams have put up in an opening game in the history. And this is the most points that the Bucs have scored in a game since a significant period of time. And a lot of it came down to Ryan Fitzpatrick in the first half, and kind of continuing that wave into the second half. Where the struggle came, what I seen from the Bucs, the struggle primarily came on defense. I think Fitzpatrick putting up 417 yards and 4 touchdowns in a way kind of bailed out the defense, because Breeze put up 432 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 of those in the fourth quarter. And again, they scored 2 2-point conversions in the fourth quarter as well. The Bucs did a great job of eliminating the run, only giving up 43 yards of rushing, 2 touchdowns, but only 43 yards, holding them to 3.3. Now, again, that break-even point, you want to get teams 3 or under. So they were right there on the precipice of that, and 3.3 yards. They did give up 2 touchdowns on the ground, albeit both to Alvin Kamara. So, again, they did good there. What was the struggle was the secondary for both teams, really. The pass rush for the Bucs, it was better than it's been in a while. 5 quarterback hits. They had 2 touchdowns, 3 tackles for loss, and a sack. And that sack came from Vinny Curry. Had a sack and a tackle for loss. Quan Alexander had a tackle for loss. But I think what we need to see is only giving up that small amount of yards on defense. There was nobody on the team that broke 10 total tackles. Nobody had double-digit tackles. And that's usually a sign that too many guys are getting into space. And that's what Drew Brees does best. He finds those little pockets of space and puts guys in puts the ball in there for the guys to go get. So It again, it was a good effort, but want to see more out of the defense. You need to see, want to see them be able to get out there and really rock them. I mean, Noah Spence came in relief and got a quarterback hit. And, that's the thing. So in the NFL, on average, NFL quarterbacks get the ball out in 2.7 seconds, 2.5 to 2.7 seconds. The ball is gone. That's it. That's all the time you have. So, like from now to right now, that's 2.7 seconds, 2.5, 2.7. Now to now. That's how long you have. You have to get there. It's awing. It's awe-inspiring to see guys get. It's a tough thing to do. But without a pass rush, again, 5 quarterback hits is good. The 2 touchdowns is why they won the game. Sack, 3 tackles for loss. It's good. It's trending in the right direction, but giving up 432 yards through the air and 3 touchdowns, that is where it again. He completed 37 of 45 passes. He threw almost 50 passes. He landed. I mean, his quarterback rating was 129.5. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick balled out in the best game of his life, 21 for 28. His quarterback rating was 156.3. Or his RTG. His quarterback rating was 97.1. He was actually better, had a better quarterback rating than Brees. He out-quarterbacked Drew Brees. You don't hear that happen too often. Also on the Bucs, on the other end, is the punt return game. The special teams has to improve on getting yardage. You have Deshaun Jackson, you have Adam Humphries, you have both those guys back there. Humphries had 2, he got 17 yards. Longest was 8.5. Deshaun Jackson 1, he got 2 yards. I mean, that's a net of 16 yards in punt returns. They need to find a way to create more space here so these 2 guys can return the football. The field goal kicking, 2 for 3 there. Again, you don't like to see the field goal kicker miss. He was 100% on his extra point, so that's good. But and punting, we only punted once, 42 yards. I mean, you can't get too upset with that as on the Bucs, and you forced 3 punts from New Orleans. You want to see more than that. You forced 2 punts. Again, you did get your defense did get 2 touchdowns. So that a good effort for the Bucs, but there are some areas they need to clean up. They are back in Tampa this weekend against the defending Super Bowl champions. It's not going to be an easy road. Again, we seen last week that the Eagles played well against a team that can put up points. So, and with a lot of weapons. And the Eagles defense held the Falcons to 12 points. Not a single touchdown. They got 4 field goals. That's it. So Again, some of it's Matt Ryan struggles in the red zone, but again, they went out and they did that again with their, everyone calls their backup, but with Nick Foles. So Philly is not going to be a letdown. I think probably one of the bigger surprises, and maybe one of the areas that a lot of people kind of struggle with seeing, especially those in Pittsburgh, was seeing the Steelers go to Cleveland and end up coming. I think it'd be fair to say they lost in a tie. Because, again, it's the Browns that won no games. So the Browns in this game break their losing streak by tying. Now, I don't think it's too often that that Ben Roethlisberger comes out and has a game like he did. He did have some games like that, particularly, I guess against Jacksonville last year. But typically, you're not going to see Ben Roethlisberger come out and throw 3 interceptions. I mean, he still put up 335 yards and a touchdown, but threw 3 interceptions. You throw 3 interceptions, this is how you almost lose to the Browns. So, again, Tyrod Taylor shows that he is good enough to be there. 1 touchdown, 1 interception in the air. He ran for another one. He had 264 yards of total offense. So he was primarily their offense. I mean, his longest run was 24 yards. He had more rushing yards than Carlos Hyde. Nick Chubb only got 3 carries. That's the thing. Is like Nick Chubb and Duke Johnson, I think, were very underutilized in this game. Duke Johnson, you can use that guy in so many different situations, I think. And Nick Chubb, you can really alternate with Carlos Hyde. But Chubb, 3 carries, Duke, 5. Then Duke Johnson's only had 1 reception for 8 yards. So I think they underutilized him. Now, some fans were happy Josh Gordon was in the game. He got 1 reception for 17 yards and a touchdown. So that shows that that they have he's going to get back into it. But Jarvis Landry, he was there, 7 catches, 106 yards, no touchdowns, but he was clearly what moved the chains and was the go-to for Cleveland outside of Tyrod Taylor. So this is kind of like I said, a sloppy game on both sides. So it'll be, again, who knows if this is week 1. I'm not going to do the overreactions. I mean, there's all kinds of percentages of teams. If you go 2-0 or 0-2, how unlikely it is to make it to the playoffs. But in week 2, there are going to be some very humbling games. The Steelers host the Chiefs. This could be a situation where they start off 0-1-1, have no wins, which could put them at the bottom of their division. And that's not, and have James, and so it's kind of like they're not winning, but clearly when you have James Conner with 31 carries, 135 yards, and 2 touchdowns, just balling out. You can't really look over and say, Le'Veon Bell's the reason we're not winning. I mean, you pull that back up there for last week. When you have Ben Roethlisberger still put up 355 yards, was that what? 335 yards. You can't say it's because he's not passing the rock around, Can't really say that. That whole argument goes out the window. He can't get the yardage. Juju Smith-Schuster, 119 yards on 5 receptions. Yep. Probably because there's no offense. No, there's offense, just not the scoring. Antonio Brown had 90. He had 9 receptions for 93 yards and a touchdown. I mean, the third receiver, even Jesse James, a kid out of Penn State, in his 4th season. He was a 5th round draft pick by Jesse James. Cool name. 60 yards on 3 receptions. So it's, you can't say the offense wasn't there for the Steelers. But what you can say is Ben Roethlisberger threw 3 very costly interceptions, because clearly that's a large contributor to why they lost. So it's not going to be a drop in the bucket. And clearly, looking down the barrel at this week, in week 2, the Steelers could very much find themselves in a situation where they have no wins heading into week 3. And then in the AFC South, the Texans losing week 1 to the Patriots, and the Titans losing week 1 to the Dolphins is kind of, again, Delaney Walker. The offense just, they got to get their offense moving without the tight end. See how they do against Texas. I don't know. I would tend to think that Texas could have this one in the bag, which really puts the Titans in a situation where they're 0-2. It's not going to look too bright for them. Now, the Browns, we can pretty much, I think, wrap that losing streak back, get that losing streak back going again. They're heading to New Orleans, where the Saints failed to come back and just kind of drop the ball against the Buccaneers, and at home. So you're going to have a very upset Saints team, feeling like there was a game that they should have won that they dropped. Again, they won the division and last year, and came very close to beating the Vikings, and then didn't. And that would have taken them to the AFC or NFC Championship game. So the thing very close to that, and they should pull out this game this weekend. On the other end, one team that really has to they're going to have to do some soul searching after this week is between the Lions and the 49ers. One of these two teams are going to be 0-2. And it's it's not looking good for the Lions there in the beginning here. The 49ers, they played the Minnesota Vikings close. It was a winnable game for them. 24-16, they lose. I would be willing to go out on a limb here. Clearly not a very far limb. And bet Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't throw 3 interceptions against. Well, we had some quarterbacks throw some duds this weekend. Nathan Peterman threw multiple interceptions, seemingly in like 2 minutes. I don't know how on one drive you can throw 2 interceptions, but it seems like that. He gets benched. So Allen is in there, and he looked like a rookie. And he'll only get better. But again, I don't see Garoppolo throwing 3 INTs again. This Lion team is going to have to do something pretty big. They don't look like they have the playmakers really on defense to do a whole lot. So I'll give the edge to the 49ers in this game, but so it should be a very winnable game for the Niners. But again, we're looking at one of these two teams are going to end up 0-2. And the same goes for the Giants and the Cowboys. Now the Giants are coming off of an effort that was it was close. They could have at some point won this game. They could have beat the Jaguars. They lose 20-15, low scoring game. Odell Beckham Jr. was pretty much eating up Jalen Ramsey, and you pretty much, you got what you were looking for from Shaquan Barkley. 18 carries, 106 yards, and a touchdown. Most of it coming on one run. Nonetheless, he got you 106 yards on 18 carries and a touchdown. But Odell Beckham Jr., 111 yards, just really being the key how the Giants were able to move the ball down the field. Eli's costly interception and not being able to find the end zone is really what kind of did them in. He completed 23 of 37 passes. So for 224 yards, but he's clearly not the quarterback. It's really going to be able to push this team through. There's some work he needs to do. He's against a really good defense. Blake Bortles, on the other hand, pedestrian, 176 yards, one touchdown and interception as well. They really didn't get a lot going on offense. They were able to get up 20 points, which is how you got to win sometimes. But TJ Yeldon, 14 carries, 51 yards. Blake Bortles was the second leading rusher with 42. And Leonard Fournette, I think they kind of keeping an eye on him to make sure he doesn't have these chronic nagging injuries. This time it's hamstring. 41 yards. So it's kind of that glue that moved that offense was Leonard Fournette. And I think they're kind of realizing this at this point. Keelan Cole, 54 yards. D.D. Westbrook, 51 yards. Austin Safarian-Jenkins, 25 yards. Again, very pedestrian sort of numbers. They did get a fumble. They did recover a fumble. It's a positive. And they did. They were able to hit the quarterback 6 times. They picked up 2 touchdowns on defense, and that's really what won the game for them because the offense wasn't getting it done. 9.5 tackles for loss. So this defense is what was there for them. Miles Jack getting a 32-yard interception, returned for a touchdown. That is clearly a big help. But again, where they struggle again is in the punt return. Only 5 yards per return at 2. So I want to see more movement of the ball there. So these two teams the Jags are 1-0, but after this weekend, the Cowboys and Giants playing, one of these two teams are going to be 0-2 and 0-1 in conference, or in their division rather. So it could be a struggle for them. So, all right. Did not get to Serena Williams tonight. Got more on the NFL I wanted to talk about. I might get to in a podcast later on this week. But that is all we have for the show tonight. Appreciate all of you tuning in, wherever you watch from Blog Talk or from going and downloading the free Spreaker app, or for those of you who tune in over on Facebook Live. Appreciate it there. Again, go to your app store, download Spreaker, the free app, follow the show. See the social media up here at the CHT on Sports. You can find me at Matt Long Sports. You can see this show, Facebook Live. It'll be over on YouTube as well. You can find the full show you can listen to on YouTube, on SoundCloud, Somos, iTunes. You can go again to the website, chtonsports.com. Just click on the listen link and be able to watch the show up there as well. Thank you all for those of you for listening in, watching the show, and we will be back again next week. I think Kevin will be back next week. I didn't get into Tiger Woods either, so I will get into that probably in a podcast this week or a social media post. But thank you all. Have a good night, and we'll catch you next week. I'm out.